All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA video. For those of you guys that are in here right now, just make sure to hit that like button. Trying to see how many we can get. That's gonna be my new thing at the start of the video. Just hit that like button. But what are your kind of initial thoughts for this slate? Because we got some big names out already. John Morant, Cade Cunningham are confirmed out. We got kind of Joachim Poeltl. I don't know if you would consider him a big name. Franz Wagner is out. It seems like this could be kind of a fun slate.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And unlike last night where I was kind of mad we had to deal with the late game, I really like the late game tonight. With Poto out, it seems like some of the bigs for Toronto are under-owned. But yeah, I mean, a lot of news broke yesterday. Unfortunately, Morant's going to be out for the season. He's not on the slate, but we saw Halliburton go down. Cade Cunningham's going to be out for a while. So it's been like Armageddon for point guards the past couple days, which is unfortunate for the league. But as far as finding value for DFS, though, it definitely makes the slates a little bit funner to build.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at it, it seems like a lot of people are just trying to get to a lot of the Memphis plays. I definitely agree with Marcus Smart, and we can kind of start there news-wise. I think Marcus Smart is a good play. The rest of the ones are kind of surprising to me, like Vince Williams being that chalk, Zaire Williams being that chalk. Seem like fine plays, as well as Bane, as well as Jaren Jackson. And then I also like Luke Kennard a little bit, but kind of what are your thoughts for Memphis? Is there anyone that you see as a starting point, or maybe someone you think is the fade?
I mean, I think Smart and Bane are good on both sides. I'm definitely going to start with them. Jaren Jackson has a Q tag, which is definitely interesting. Something we're going to have to keep an eye on. If he's in, I like it, though. Bigs have been crushing Dallas. But, yeah, I will say the Zaire ownership on DK feels a little bit too high, in my opinion. Kennard, if he's starting, I feel okay about it. But I could see maybe coming in under the field on him. But, yeah, Zaire to me is the one I don't necessarily want to be too heavy on. I do like Vince, though, coming off the bench even. He's been awesome all season. Even on FanDuel, we're getting him lower owned, even though you have to pay 5.2 for him. I do like him over there. You can only play 4 Grizzlies per lineup, so you do have to make some choices, even if you're loading up on this team. But yeah, I agree. Smart and Bane are definitely starting points for me. Bane's been really solid.
Even still on FanDuel for Smart, where he's a little bit higher priced?
I mean, honestly, yeah, just because I'm comparing him to the other guards in that range, and we do have some decent options, but like if you're not paying all the way up, like I like Quickly as well, but I'd still rather get the Smart. And there's just not much else to really get excited about at point guard tonight, unless you're paying all the way up. So just kind of the way the slate's breaking, most of the values coming at both forward positions. So I'm going to get to a lot of Marcus Smart tonight. I think he has a pretty high floor and high ceiling. So
yeah. And then we did just get a comment coming in as well about one of the situations we'll touch on. So who are we looking at for Toronto? Because we did get news that Joachim Poeltl is going to be out. Obviously, they're still without Precious because, well, they traded him. Who are we looking at for Toronto? And we'll start with the question that we have.
Yeah, so I'm honestly pretty shocked by the ownership on Chris Boucher right now. I thought he'd be way more popular. I know he plays limited minutes. I know he comes off the bench, but with Poeltl out, he's going to have to play a lot of minutes at center. And it's not like they're playing a small team tonight. They're playing the Lakers, who are one of the biggest. I do think we see Siakam start at the 5, which is going to be a boost for him. All the other starters should benefit here. We should see Gary Trent slide back into the starting lineup, so it's going to be a boost for him as well. But, I mean, as far as the bench guys go, it's going to be a boost for Boucher in a big way. Jonte Porter is minimum price, not something I'm necessarily trusting. But, again, against the big Lakers team, I think it's going to be tough for them to go small at all here. And, yeah, you mentioned Precious no longer with the team. I love a lot of Toronto tonight, like probably my favorite team to get to, maybe other than Memphis. And if Jackson's in, maybe just as much as Memphis. And with it being the last game on the slate, I mean, you have some maneuverability. Yeah, really, really like the spot here for Toronto, which should be a close game with a high total.
So sorting it by kind of the value, Dennis is pulling in as the best play. The value as in he has no ownership. Is he someone that we could see maybe slide into a little bit more minutes because they're kind of dipped with Quickly being back or being on the team and playing well? Is that a spot where maybe he does get 30 minutes and the revenge game narrative stuff a little bit as well? I don't know. I could buy into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I mean, he did what? Turn down 82 million from them or whatever it was.
I saw a story. Yeah.
But if you're landing on Schroeder, I don't mind it. I mean, the thing is, like, he's already been playing close to 30 minutes per night. I think he's going to continue to see that. I don't know that he's going to see tons of extra usage with the second unit where Podol's usually playing with the
Yeah.
first unit. But at the same time, I mean, it's a trickle-down effect. All these guys should see another minute or two, which is enough for them to become even more appealing, especially someone like Schroeder, who does feel kind of cheap even coming off the bench on DK.
So I'm with you with Chris Bouchard. Bouchard, how do you say it?
Boucher.
Boucher.
Like
Okay.
Bobby Boucher, like in Waterboy.
It's like I just need to say it 20 times to like get it locked in the brain there. But I agree. I think he's maybe not a starting point per se, but as price tag and as ownership, I kind of just want to put him in the sample build for now.
Yeah, I mean, he is a monster fantasy points per minute. Even when I had Nick Nurse there, same situation. Like, you don't always know if he's going to get minutes, but he's a guy in 15 minutes who can get you 30 fantasy points. Back-to-back games with 9 rebounds total. One of those games, he only played 16 minutes. Definitely a tough matchup here against the big Lakers squad, but that tells me they're going to need him more. So while it is a bit tougher, that probably lowers his fantasy point per minute rate slightly. You're also probably going to get more minutes for him here against the big team with Podol out. He's checking all the boxes for me. Sub 5K on both sites, and he's lower owned than I really thought he would be. 13% on DK right now, 17% on FanDuel. Very, very surprising to me. And the other good news is you can play him at power forward, so he's very easy to build with.
Yeah, to me, when I started the build, I always do like a morning build. He was my starting point today, so I was very shocked to see the ownership at 13 and 17%, especially given your point, you can play him at power forward as well. So, let's get into the another big kind of injury situation. So we're going to be without Cade Cunningham for Detroit. And so for me, I instantly wanted to get to some of Jaden Ivey. I instantly wanted to get to some of Hayes, maybe not so much Hayes on FanDuel, but Hayes is extremely chalk on DraftKings. He's priced at 4.5, 51%. And I think that as more people are just trying to chase a floor, maybe not a ceiling on tonight's slate where we're not getting elite value. On DraftKings, he is coming in with a 17.3 value rating right now on the model. Is he someone you see as a starting point? If not, who else would you see as a potential starting point from Detroit lineup-wise?
Yeah, I mean, on ZK, I think he's tough to get away from. Like, we could look through his game logs and look what he's been doing this season, but I mean, until like the first few weeks of the season when Cunningham was out, like we're really not going to be able to find that data. So we're really pulling back. And I think he does have upside here. He's a guy who hasn't been getting over 25 minutes consistently, but I want to see what we're projecting him for around 28. I mean, if he gets 28, you got to figure he's close to a point per minute here. Pretty good matchup against Sacramento. Yes, they're a good team, but they play very fast, which should be in his favor here. So on DK, I like it. 6K on FanDuel, definitely tougher. Viable there, definitely not a starting point. I mean, it's tough to say there is a starting point really for Detroit on FanDuel just because everyone's kind of pricing it should be. The price on Burks is up, the price on Ivy's up, Bogdanovich a little bit inconsistent. I will say this though, there is a fade for me here. I do not understand Livers being more popular than Boucher on both sites. I know he's probably into the starting lineup, but he's been super inconsistent. Certainly has upside for his price, but at pretty high ownership, I'm very comfortable getting away from him.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I mean, 17, 15% owned, projected to get the same minutes there. That's a little shocking to me. Yeah. I will say I'm getting to a lot of Ivy and Burks. I feel like those are kind of two plays where I want to chase the ceiling for me, who mostly plays on DraftKings. And shout out to you guys yesterday for, I think it was Chris Dunn calling out the small forward eligibility with him. That was very useful last night. That's kind of why I like Burks tonight too, because you can put him in the small forward spot, the forward spot as well. 5.4 seems to be a little bit too cheap. Not projected to get a minutes bump though. That's the concern. But Ivy, if he's getting 31 minutes, that's pretty intriguing to me. Even at 6.3, I feel like he's also a safe play.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Ivy's very aggressive on the offensive end. I actually like him a lot on FanDuel. He's only 100 more over there than he is on DK. It's like they really priced up a lot of these Detroit guys over on FanDuel, which makes it tough to get to Hayes at 6K. Burks is 6K now, which feels a little bit crazy. It is a good matchup. I do think Ivy's probably my favorite from Detroit. Bogdanovich will be popular because of that forward eligibility, but I'm with you, man. I think Ivy's probably the best weapon this offense has. With Cunningham off the floor, and Yeah, it's the first game too, so I'm a little bit hesitant to load up on it too much. But yeah, I definitely think Ivy, Bogdan have upside. Hayes is fine, and then I mean, if you want to use your center spot for Durant, I don't think it's crazy here against Sabonis either.
Yeah. Any other injury news that you want to mention before we kind of get into the position by position breakdown? Obviously, Orlando's still pretty banged up. We could talk about that, but I don't know. Nothing really moves the needle too much for me. Maybe Jalen Suggs I like a little bit more, but I feel like we could break that down in the guard spot.
Yeah, we could talk about Orlando when we get to the position breakdown, but it is definitely big that there's no what's his name, Franz Wagner,
Yeah.
and Markel Fultz is back, but I think still limited. So it is kind of a weird situation there, but very low total on that game, 217. I think every other game is at least 10 points higher.
Yeah, and we can actually start out with kind of those guards for Orlando here. But that's to your point. It is a very low scoring game, so not the most appealing there. To me, I do like Jalen Suggs, 1% owned. I'd be fine getting to him. And let's say I'm making 10 builds. Yeah, give me him in 2 builds. Not
Yeah.
nothing easy. Projected at 32 minutes. He got into foul trouble in the last game, so had a pretty good game. It was okay. Cole Anthony, I'm fine with as well, but I feel like those two players are, at least on DraftKings, just way too low owned on tonight's slate. FanDuel, Cole Anthony is probably correctly owned. What are your kind of thoughts for the Orlando guards?
No, I like Suggs a lot in his ownership. I think people are scared because the prices come up, but what they're not realizing is that he's starting now. I mean, and consistently. So I don't know. I like Suggs here. He's been getting over 30 minutes. Like earlier in the year, yeah, we loved playing him in that 5K range, but he wasn't playing 30 minutes per night. So there's a reason his price is up. Like you don't have to be alarmed. So I really like Suggs. He's probably my favorite piece of this backcourt here. I don't mind mixing in Cole Anthony. I still think the limit on Fultz is enough for me to not play him at all. But yeah, Suggs is definitely my favorite from that group.
Yeah, I should have probably made that clear. This is directly because Fultz still has a minutes limit. If that gets lifted tonight randomly before lineup lock, then I would say no one's really in play for our Orlando guard wise. But looking at the other plays that we have, just sorted by the OF index, not the highest OF index ratings. Luka is pretty solid. It seems like kind of chalk. Kyrie, pretty solid, kind of chalk as well. De'Aaron Fox, pretty solid. Like scrolling by it, the one player that does stand out is Marcus Smart. Maybe Dennis a little bit, maybe Killian Hayes a little bit. To me, I see Marcus Smart as a starting point. At least on DraftKings, who do you see as a starting point? Maybe on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly the same for me. I know he's a little bit more expensive over here, but like I said, I don't know that I want to pay all the way up at guard tonight. Like, I'm not going to argue with anyone who wants to play Luka, Fox, Brunson, etc. Like, they're all fine plays. But when we get to forward and center, my favorite play tonight is probably Anthony Davis. I'm going to be loading up on him. And in order to fit him, I can't really pay up at guard all that much, but I am getting to a ton of Marcus Smart. Really, really like him here. Bane, if you want to call him a guard, awesome. But then Emmanuel quickly in that late game too. I mean, he has looked really solid here as the starter. I think he's getting more and more comfortable. This Lakers team has been kind of hit or miss, especially on the defensive end. I think he has plenty of upside here. If he can get over 30 minutes, should be able to get you 40 or so fantasy points, which is what you're going to want at that price. But then right alongside next to him, he's going to have Gary Trent probably starting here, unless they do go ahead and start Boucher, which is not something I'm expecting. Trent, when he does get the minutes, has been solid. And then one other guy similarly priced to Trent, who should be starting tonight. We did just get word that Kevin Huerter is probably sliding into the starting lineup for the Kings. Good matchup here against Detroit. Obviously scoring dependent, some risk, but he is probably too cheap for a guy that's going to get over 25 minutes. So I like Huerter, and I really like those Toronto guys, but the no-brainer plays are definitely the Memphis backcourt there with Smart and Bane.
Who would you say, because you mentioned kind of two plays that are good values, and then we have the Hayes chalk. So I kind of want you to rank these plays. So we got Huerter, Trent, and Hayes. How would you rank those three?
On DK, it's Hayes first, just because of the price in the minutes. Then probably Huerter second, just because I think he could see higher usage, and I do really like the matchup. I mean, yeah, Trent's close behind, but I'm on so much other Toronto tonight that I think I don't want to get overexposed there. Like Trent and Huerter are close. On DK, Hayes is definitely number one, but again, he's probably double the ownership. So if you want to pivot, it does make sense to maybe go elsewhere. But yeah, I'd go Hayes, then Huerter, then Trent, but I like all three.
I would say Herter might have a slightly higher ceiling than both, but he's very much risk reward based too. Like
Definitely.
very shot dependent. So you think Bane's a starting point lineup wise? Because I'm kind of indifferent about that. I would say at his price tag, I could definitely see that. I could put him in right now. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, if Jackson is out, he like has to be. But I
Yeah.
already think he is. Honestly, I mean Dallas, they've been decent, but defensively they've been pretty weak. I mean, Luka and Kyrie aren't really going to slow him down very much. I know
Yeah.
Green and Jones are going to be in there playing some D on him, but yeah, I mean he's been great with the extra usage and with Marcus Smart taking the ball up the court, it really has taken some of the defensive attention off of him. We saw earlier in the season when it was just Bane with no Morant, he didn't look so good, but now with Smart back. Smart definitely passing first more than he's shooting. Really favors Bane, so I like him a lot. He is a starting point for me tonight in that 8K range.
Okay. Yeah, I can get behind that fully there. And then we did get a question coming in about Houston it's weird. Yeah, we'll just pull it up. So Houston from Orlando there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't really been able to get to him at all. Not someone I'm excited to play.
I mean, yeah, he's one of these guys like Julian Champagne on the Spurs. Like, I see the name, I see the price. I'm like, I don't want to play him. But then when you dig a little bit deeper, he actually has been pretty good. He has been taking up some usage, making shots. He's getting minutes. So yeah, I mean, if you're landing on him, I think he's fine. But again, just keep in mind this game is a very low total. You're playing one of the best defenses in the league with Minnesota. And yeah, I mean, Ben Charo's taking up a ton of that usage there. There's more reasons not to play him than to play him, but at low ownership, in a range where there is some chalky value, I don't mind him as a pivot, but certainly not a starting point. If you're landing on him, though, I think he's fine. It's tough for me to really gauge what we can expect from him because it's pretty new that we're seeing 30 minutes out of this guy on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and that's a good pivot into the forwards here. To me, just at that price tag, I was trying to get to Kevin Knox to start the day just with all that news. He's not too high owned. I'm guessing that's just because we probably have other better plays that are popping up. I would say, the Memphis value we could probably get to a little bit more. 19 minutes. I do want to get your thoughts on that. Is he a decent value? Because kind of to the point of Caleb Houston, he's been playing pretty well lately with him getting minutes lately.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say he's riskier than Houston because he's going to be coming off the bench. It is a good matchup here. He is one of these guys that's kind of game script independent in that if it's close or if it's a blowout, he's going to be involved, which is a plus. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of boomer bust. And the issue for me, too, is this is one of the first games on the slate. And we always talk about how if you're locking up value early, it makes it tough to kind of pivot if you need to late. Like if Jackson's ruled out, you might want to get to Tillman or something like that later. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, like because it's an early game, because there's risk there, I don't mind mixing him in if you're playing a bunch of lineups. He definitely has upside for the price, but I can't say I'm confident in his minutes or his rotation here. But yeah, he's fine around 4K. Like I'm not going to tell you not to play him. I just don't think
Yeah.
he's really a priority as value. Definitely more of a high risk, large field type play.
So just looking at it from like a value side of it, we actually have some values that are popping up as like pretty properly owned. Harrison Barnes being one, Bogdanovich for Detroit, Anthony Davis, who you mentioned is one of your favorite plays. We got Josh Hart, Siakam, but like pricing wise, it's probably Derek Jones, Jaden McDaniels, Isaiah Livers, and then Herter and Vince Williams. Vince Williams is chalk, so kind of got to figure out what to do there. And then maybe DiVincenzo, maybe Okiki. Like it does start to get kind of thin.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite plays tonight to pay up for are kind of forwards. Like we have AD, we have Barnes and Siakam for Toronto, who I really like. We already talked about Bane, so I don't need to pay down as much here as maybe the field is. I will say I like Herter. We talked about him as a guard. Vince
Yeah.
Williams, I like on both sides just because I like what he does when he is on the floor. So I'm pretty comfortable with them as chalk. But some of these other guys, like Livers, I think is overowned. It's tough for me to trust McDaniels. Derek Jones Jr. I mean, with Kyrie and Luka in there, over 5K, it's tough for me to get to him. I mean, Hart's okay, but again, pretty inconsistent, especially coming off the bench. So I don't know. I don't love the mid range here. I do see Harrison Barnes really popping in the model, but he's not drawing much ownership. He's super inconsistent. So yeah, I'm mostly paying up here, honestly. And if I am paying down, it's going to be guys like Williams, Herter, Chris Boucher as a power forward. who we'll talk about in a little bit as well when we get to centers.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of guys kind of in this lower mid tier, and I think I can avoid a good chunk of them and feel okay about it.
So, like on the high end, are you getting to any Banchero at all in this matchup with Minnesota? That to me is a very difficult matchup. Like to me, he seems like a stay away. That could be a mistake though because he's been crushing it. So 17% owned on DraftKings, 9% owned on FanDuel. Again, early game, kind of lower scoring game, but he has been crushing.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not prioritizing him, but I do want to kind of make a point to get to some. 3 games straight over 40 minutes, that's going to be tough to
Yeah.
find. He's taking all the usage here with Franz Wagner out. He's been tremendous, just amazing. And he's not popular either. So if you can get to him, I do like him, but it's just tough to prioritize him over someone like AD, Bain, etc. But again, Fields feeling the same exact way. He's sub 20% on DK at 9K, sub 10% on FanDuel, where he's pushing 10K, but he has hit value for the price. Much worse matchup than what he's been up against. But yeah, man, I mean, at low ownership, he is the type of play on kind of a 5-6 game slate that you do want to get some exposure to if you're playing multiple lineups. It's just not a starting point for me necessarily.
I gotcha. And then I kind of want to pivot into centers a little bit here, but with a little bit of a question here. And it's going to be with Jaren Jackson. So if Jaren Jackson Jr. is active tonight, obviously you can play him at power forward. Are you going to be on him? And then if he doesn't sit, do you see a potential pivot to, again, Sensei Aldama is a little bit banged up as well, to maybe Bismack Biyombo if Jaren Jackson Jr. is out? I kind of want to get your thoughts there because, Bigs against Dallas, especially right now, kind of a thing.
Yeah, so I really, really, really like Jackson if he's in. I think he's going to be lower owned than some of the other Memphis pieces because of the Q tag.
Yeah.
And yes, 7,700 on DK is just incorrect pricing. Like I'm very comfortable paying the 83 on FanDuel. I love him here if he's in. If he's out, yes, it should benefit Biyombo. I could already see getting to Biyombo, but I think what it would really do is open more minutes up for Xavier Tillman. The thing is, Tillman hasn't been very good since he's been back from injury, so you're going to have to proceed with some caution. But if he were to slide into the starting lineup there, which I think is actually fairly likely, they could go small maybe with Vince William there. Again, Dallas not the biggest team, but I think it's either going to benefit Vince, who I'm already on, or maybe make someone like Xavier Tillman more interesting. It would secure Biyombo for me as far as like his floor goes, but I do think he's pretty popular already. I would have to double check that, but would not be complaining if I'm landing on Biyombo here.
Yeah, Biyombo's about 18 and 30% owned right now. I haven't refreshed this in about 20 minutes, so that could have changed slightly, but not too crazy. And then getting into the question that we have here, Goga. So thoughts on Goga? I feel like it's too thin tonight. Granted, I was kind of wrong about him on the previous slate. So what are your thoughts on Goga tonight?
I think he's okay. I don't know. It's just tough to want to prioritize him here against the worst matchup for bigs in the league. I mean, Minnesota's front court of Cat and Gobert has been excellent. They got McDaniels there too, who's a really good defender. So it's a bad matchup for him. But again, there's still no Wendell Carter Jr. He should play 25 to 30 minutes here as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. So if you're landing on him, I think you're fine. But again, I don't think he's a priority here. On DK, you could get to Hartenstein for 700 more. I think he's a much, much better play. Then on FanDuel, I'm playing a ton of Boucher with Siakam, with AD. That's taking up my front court spots, mixing in some Scotty Barnes there as well. So I'm just not getting to him. It's a bad matchup, I do want to say. But at the price, I mean, he has shown he has upside. So if he can stay on the floor, I think he's an okay play, but it's really tough for me to call him a priority here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Looking at the centers, we kind of already mentioned, we think Chris Boucher there is just way too low. Oh, I shouldn't say way too low. Way too low owned. Sure, we'll go with it. 13% and 17%. Yeah, conviction, right? But the other center play that I was a little bit surprised at by ownership, and it's probably because, to your point, Anthony Davis is in a good spot and also same exact price. But to me, Sabonis against Detroit, I was looking at it as a very strong play because he has been going off. But I guess the concern is the game blowing out too fast. It's a very high game total, don't get me wrong. But kind of what are your thoughts on Sabonis? And then, you can get into AD and maybe why he's a slightly better play.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sabonis he's kind of similar to Banchero. And, like, if I can get to some, I do want to. I do think he's a little bit under-owned on both sites. Even 20% on FanDuel, I think that's a little lower than he probably should be in the matchup just because you can play him at power forward over there as well. But, again, I'm loading up on Jackson, and the favorite play probably on tonight's slate for me is AD. In certain matchups, he just dominates because no one can really slow him down. He takes over the offense. LeBron will defer to him. He's coming off two kind of flourish games, but those were very different matchups against the Clippers and the Grizzlies there. I love this spot. I mean, they're going to probably be starting Siakam at center. He should just go off here. So I really like him. I think he's reasonably owned on both sites, probably a little bit lower owned than he should be. I know he's very expensive on FanDuel, but I think we have more than enough value to get to him today. When I'm comparing him to the other payups, I'm like, sure, Luka probably has maybe a higher ceiling, but with Kyrie in, we haven't seen it all that often lately. And I know Jaw's out for the Grizzlies, but they do have Smart and Bane in there. They're actually still a pretty decent defensive team. I just love the matchup for AD. I love that it's the last game on the slate, so if there is any pivoting I need to do, I'm able to. He just makes it easy for me tonight. Like, if you're paying up in late games, it's very easy to pivot whenever you need to. I love the matchup again. No Jakob there. Who's going to slow him down? I mean, it's not going to be Boucher. He's not a good defender. Siakam maybe at times, but again, I mean, he's going to be outsized, so he checks all the boxes for me here. And yeah, close game, at least according to Vegas, really high total, 236 points. I mean, it's tough not to love him. And like I said, we have enough value elsewhere that I think I do want to pay up here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The value, again, just kind of going over it, is kind of chalky right now. Killian Hayes, Vince Williams, a little bit of Zaire Williams as well, Gary Trent Jr., and then also Luke Kennard. So, yeah, there is enough value, and maybe if you want to fade some of the value, you are still getting some pretty good other secondary options that are not as chalky. So, being able to pay up for AD, certainly plausible on this slate. Let's get into one other question here, and then I think we can get into a little bit of a first look build. So, is Thompson starting tonight? I don't think so.
Yeah, let me check that. I haven't checked the news in a minute. And we did just get news that Jabari Walker is going to be out for the Blazers, which goes into that next question. But let's touch on Detroit first. My internet's loading slow. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think he would start here.
No, he's not projected to get a lot of minutes. 14.7. I'm looking right now I have two always pulled up. Neither of them are showing him as starting.
Okay, yeah. So if I don't think he's going to start here, unfortunately. I mean, he's so cheap, you could maybe mix him into high-risk contests, but I'd much rather get to Burks or Knox off the bench. Ivy or Hayes as the starters. It's just really tough to prioritize him right now.
And then, yeah, getting into this question, this is actually something I was thinking about asking you. So, way to bring it up there, Rico. Yeah, so what are we doing? So, Jabari Walker's out, Aiden's out, and Brown's out. So, a lot of the bigs are out for Portland. Is there anyone that we like here? Because, you know, the pricing is kind of increased on a lot of the plays, except for maybe Jeremy Grant. But Reith, he's kind of a little bit too high priced, I would say, on DraftKings. On FanDuel, way too high priced. Simon's maybe a little bit too cheap on DraftKings. But with everyone healthy, there's not that much usage to go around. I was actually thinking about maybe a little bit of Aiden in GPPs if he was healthy, but I don't know. I don't love the spot too much. What is your thoughts here?
I actually don't mind Reith on DK at the price. It's interesting. The last game he played, Baji only played like 8 minutes, and that game went to overtime. Reith played all of the center minutes. I think they are trying to build this guy now, at least behind Ayton as his backup. So with Ayton still out, this isn't a bad matchup. I know Hartenstein's been really solid lately in terms of like stat padding and all that, but it's not like Reith can't get his here as well. So at 5,500, I'm fine getting to him. I do think it's going to secure his minutes that Walker's out of the lineup, but you mentioned Grant. I do think it should benefit Grant here as well. We got to remember Tumani Kamara, who's probably starting on the wing. Tougher for me to get excited about him, but he's another guy who maybe benefits. But of that group, I mean, point per dollar, Reith does look pretty solid here. Some blowout risk against the Knicks, but I wouldn't be shocked if this game were to somehow stay close. So I think you're fine to maybe get to some Reith at center. I don't think it's crazy as maybe a pivot off a more popular Biyombo or something like that if Jackson is ruled in.
Yeah, I guess I could see like chasing the upside GPP wise, like definitely not a cash play, but kind of talked me into maybe a little bit of him, honestly, in GPPs, because 40, he's done that twice out of the last 4 games. It's worth taking a peek at.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
So let's go ahead and get into kind of a first look build. I had been putting players in there as we were doing the video, so I'll tell you the ones that we have. Marcus Smart right now, just cheap price day, good matchup against Dallas. Same thing with Desmond Bane. Well, not cheap price day, but with Jout, he's going to be the player that kind of feels safe, but also decent matchup there. He's won off against Dallas the last 2 games. Boucher there, we're getting to a decent amount. We could play him at power forward. Don't need to play him at center, but it seems like you're going to want to go AD there anyways. And then I went with Vince Williams. It seemed like you were pretty high on him and kind of just fine eating the chalk there. Is that fine, or is there a different value play that you would rather go with?
No, I think I like all those guys a lot. I think they all make plenty of sense. And if you want, I mean, you could put AD at the utility since it is the late game.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Is Williams a small forward only? Is there a power forward that you like? Because I think I just want to play him there.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Jaren Jackson, I guess. But
I mean, it's going to be tough to maybe fit both since we already have Bane. But yeah, I would go if you want to put him in power forward. I'm totally fine with that. Yeah.
Okay. So that leaves us with 5.4 left over. Again, kind of to the point, there's a lot of kind of chalky value, but you can really make a lot of stuff work because of that. I don't mind Luke Kennard. He's kind of lower owned on DraftKings, but that's maybe a little bit too much of Memphis. We could go Hayes, could go Herter, or we could, I guess I'm kind of indifferent as to what we do here, like shooting guard wise or point guard wise, doesn't really matter.
I think we're already getting pretty different having Boucher and AD in there. So maybe we'll just eat the Killian Hayes chalk at point guard.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, no, we can put him at point guard. We'll go back to Smart at shooting guard. So that leaves us with guard and utility. So about 5.9 left over. That's pretty darn good, I would say. Yeah. And so I like Quickly, I like Suggs, but again, we could maybe just eat some of the chalk tonight as well. Don't want to get too different. Who would you kind of think next?
I mean, I do like Quickly because he's in the late game, so if anything were to happen, you'd be able to pivot him with AD or whoever else. So I like Quickly.
Yeah, let's do that. 7K, 4.8 left over here.
That's going to be Herter, Trent, one of these guys.
Yeah. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Luke Kennard as well, like maybe Biyombo if Jaren Jackson's ruled out. So yeah, it's pretty decent.
I like it.
So did we mention Dennis Schroeder? A little bit in passing there. We're getting to some questions here now. We got some time to kill actually. So fire away, guys. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer those right now. He's okay. He's at a fair price tag. Good matchup. I don't really care for the, removed revenge game narrative, but all in all, he's a fine play. Like if you end up on him, not terrible.
Yeah, again, it's tough to prioritize him tonight with some of the other guard value we have, but if you're landing on him, he's fine. Just you got to keep in mind he is going to be coming off the bench, probably going to be limited to around 30 minutes here. But yeah, I mean, cheap enough that you can feel pretty good about it. It's just I don't know how high of a ceiling he has if he's only playing 30 minutes. But yeah, at the price, he has a pretty good shot to hit value.
I'm actually curious for Toronto, who does have the highest ceiling? Is it still Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam, or is Quickly working his way in there? Is Jakob Poeltl when he gets minutes, sure, but obviously that's not tonight. Is the pecking order still Barnes, Siakam, and then it's a big question mark? I would say you got RJ Barrett, you got Quickly, you got Dennis. So that's where it gets difficult.
No, it's a good question. I think right now they're getting used to their chemistry. When Dame first went to Milwaukee, we had a ton of Giannis floor games for a while, and now we're seeing the ceilings out of him again. Right now, we're getting a lot of these Scotty Barnes floor games while they kind of quickly run the offense and get comfortable. So tonight, I actually think Siakam probably is the highest ceiling. He's been consistently producing, even with Quickly in there. He's probably going to be playing a lot of minutes at center tonight too, which should boost his rebounding and just if he can get a few looks next to the basket, a couple putbacks, etc. That's going to boost him. So I think over time it's going to be Barnes, Siakam, and Quickly, kind of as it's in that order, with Siakam and Quickly being really close. But right now, I actually think Siakam and Quickly are above Barnes just because they're kind of deferring to Quickly to kind of get comfortable in this offense. And again, this is me kind of speculating, but it's what we've seen so far since the trade. And I think that's kind of going to hold true, at least for the foreseeable future, until they really get comfortable with this new rotation here.
We did just get kind of a fun question for me because I like Mo Wagner, so it doesn't really take much for me to want to get on him. So to answer this, I would say, if he was to start again, because it's a good question, because Minnesota has two bigs, he could theoretically get minutes regardless because maybe Goga gets into foul trouble, maybe Banchero gets in foul, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, but like we only have him projected to get 20 minutes, which is less than even the last game. Like I was on him 2 games ago as like a very good play because I forget who else, someone else was out, and so it was logical that he might get a little bit more run. But then 25 minutes, the projection was actually right on that slate for that as well. Now we only have him projected to get 20 minutes, so definitely concerning that the minutes continue to tick down. Is he someone you can get to at all? 5.4 on DraftKings, little bit about the same price on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine landing on him. It's just he's priced up. Like, he's over 1K than what he was a week ago, I think. And yeah, I mean, there's still no Wendell Carter. He's the backup center here. He's going to get more minutes on the wing probably with his brother out. So yeah, I like him. I just don't like the price or the matchup. Again, the Timberwolves have the best front court defense in the NBA. So um, I don't know. There's ways it could go well for him here. Like you said, if Goga or Bonchero find himself in foul trouble, I still think he could maybe get you 25, 30 points off the bench in a competitive game. But I don't know that that's enough for me to like rush to want to get to him here, given some of the other value we have available.
Yeah, if they're going against Washington and he was only projected to get 20 minutes, like
Yeah,
I would be kind of fine, just worth the risk there.
yeah.
And so we got another question coming in as well. So about OG going against Portland. So I don't know, like with him traded, I kind of thought he might actually step up into maybe a little bit higher role, just filling in potentially for RJ Barrett, but it's kind of went to a little bit of Dante DiVincenzo again, like 25 minutes. Josh Hart's playing a decent amount now, but I don't really want to get to OG. Is he anyone you're looking at tonight?
I mean, at the price of the matchup, I think he's okay, but yeah, I don't think he has much of a ceiling here. He's playing the RJ role. He's seeing similar usage. Like Brunson's the first offensive weapon here, then it's Randall, then it's Dante, and OG was really brought in to be like a defensive anchor for this
Yeah.
team, which is what the Knicks needed. Like he's a great fit there. I think it's a good thing for the Knicks. But yeah, I mean, as far as like his upside goes, I don't know. I'm not crazy about it. Maybe on FanDuel where you get extra points for blocks or steals, he's a little bit more appealing against a team like Portland who plays quick
Yeah.
and kind of reckless. If that game somehow stays close, things could go his way. You could end up with a bunch of stocks, but that's not an outcome you could rely on. So I think he's fine to maybe get you around 30 fantasy points, but like I don't know that that's enough tonight at 6,300 to really want to rush to him or prioritize him or anything like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely. And I don't know, to me, like I'm typically fine landing on guys like to close out a build. I don't know. I don't think I could really I think I'd want to rebuild if I was ending up on him almost, which just ceiling wise, I don't think it's there as much as other plays potentially at that price tag.
Yeah.
So let's see here. No more questions. What are your kind of thoughts? I guess kind of closing thoughts for tonight's slate. I'll do a data refresh, seeing if we got anything updated.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on the news. The Jaren Jackson thing is definitely interesting. I think he's going to be in, but if he's out, I'm just going to like these other Grizzlies even more. Um, yeah, I love the late game, honestly. Toronto looks really good here. I think the Lakers are a little bit under-owned compared to where they should be. At least LeBron, AD, maybe Reeves, who hasn't been as good lately, but obviously has big upside even as a starter. So fun slate tonight. I mean, there's a lot of good places to look for value. If there's something that's popping in the model is too high owned in your opinion, just get away from it. Like there's a ton of chalk here. I don't think you have to play all of it. Just pick your spots, but a lot of good ways to build tonight. Personally, I'm going heavy on AD, but it seems like the field's probably gonna have a lot of Luca. I don't want to fade Luca. I will say that. I do want
Yeah.
high shares here for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to pay up at least once in most lineups because we do have so much value.
And just looking at the chalk right now, as I refreshed it, Hayes on DraftKings is coming in at 57%. Vince Williams on DraftKings, 39%. And then Reith is now coming in at 30%. That is all starting to get uncomfortably too high. For FanDuel, you got Luke Kennard coming in at 44%. Does make sense because he's guard forward eligible. Same thing with Herter, about 38%. But the shocking one to me is Biombo coming in at 31% because he's basically the exact same price on DraftKings. Is that just like people are chasing the blocks a little bit there? Again with the added
I,
points there.
I think part of it's the matchup more than anything. I mean, Dallas has just been a gold mine for opposing bigs. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Morant out, maybe he sees more usage, but I agree. He's probably a little overowned, especially when you consider you could only play one center on FanDuel, and he does not have forward eligibility. Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm getting to a lot of AD tonight, a lot of Siakam, and then a lot of Boucher ahead of Biombo. I will be mixing him in, but I do agree that he's probably overowned.
Yeah. And we got a couple of the new questions coming in as well. I shouldn't say new, but haven't seen this person comment before, so pretty awesome there. The trouble with 5-game slates, the smaller ones tend to come down to 1 or 2 players. He ended up on Brissett instead of Andre Jackson. I actually wouldn't say that was a terrible like ownership pivot. Like
I had a
obviously
lot
more
of
times.
both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you do.
I
You
was
have more both for sure. I mean, Jackson was safer. You know what you're doing with that. Like you're taking a risk by fading the chalk play, hoping that maybe he doesn't start, maybe gets into foul trouble. Like that game got out of hand kind of quick. The Bucks were able to come back. I mean, I don't hate it. Didn't Brissett have a decent game as well? I
He had
thought.
an amazing first half and a really soft second half, which was frustrating. Like he had, I think, 16 fantasy points at half or something like that, and finished with like 20. So, yeah, I still like the Brissett play. Like if I were to play that slate again, like a few things go his way in the second half, you'd be feeling much better about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did think I was trying to make clear that like Jackson was good chalk last night at his price. I think in most of my lineups, I actually had both of them on FanDuel,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, what hurt me, I'm trying to remember. I had a lot of Pritchard, which was good. I don't even know. I pretty much broke even last night. Couldn't really climb late, and I had a lot of Harden, which was good. But there were other pieces of that late game that did a lot better than I thought they would. I was
Yeah.
worried about Zubac's minutes on the back to back. That actually burnt me. I should have got to more of him, but yeah, I wouldn't feel too bad about that pivot, man. Because like when you have some of this chalk that's like a player that no one knows, like not a household
Unknown.
name like
Yep.
Jackson, like if you fade that more often than not over the course of a season, you are probably going to benefit and come out in the green in the long run. So it's tough sometimes in NBA. Like night to night, you're going to feel a bit down that you made one bad pivot, but you got to think like if the slate were to play again, was it the right play? Maybe I wouldn't feel too bad
Yeah.
about that one.
Yeah. And we have blowouts tonight. Yeah, there's a lot of potential for blowouts. This is always a funny question. Who do you consider good chalk tonight? I mean, let me start with saying like the reason why they're chalk is because like especially with these low price plays is because they are essentially going to be good chalk in the sense that they're going to hit value more times than not. The reason why you'd want to fade them is to potentially get to someone that's slightly lower owned, let's say Gary Trent Jr. As compared to Killian Hayes, because you think Gary Trent Jr. is going to have a higher ceiling maybe than Hayes or whatnot. Is that kind of right? And I guess who would you consider good chalk tonight? Like to me, Marcus Smart, good chalk.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Smart and Bain are both good chalk, respectively, on both sites. I think they're pretty damn safe. I think on DK Hayes is probably good chalk, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I mean, there are worlds where he doesn't get the value and he's going to be an okay fade. So he's kind of borderline for me. I love Vince Williams on DK. I think he's good chalk. Then over on FanDuel, I mean, Kennard's probably good chalk is the highest on play on the slate, but he's scoring dependent. It's not going to shock me if he doesn't hit value. So I think the safest plays over there are going to be Bain. And Smart isn't as popular, obviously, because he's more expensive. But yeah, I mean, I trust the good players over the guys who are just
Yeah.
suddenly getting opportunities. But yeah, let's say Smart's good chalk on both sides. Bain's good chalk on both sides. I like Vince Williams on DK. And then Kennard on FanDuel's good, but to say he's good as the
Yeah.
highest on play on the slate, I don't know if I can.
It's
That's
It's
tricky.
kind of funny with those two, with like Kennard and Herter. It's pretty much like if you're making 2 builds, you're putting Kennard in one, Herter in the other, hoping that, obviously one of them goes off. I would say it'd be not smart, to be too risky, I should say, to put both of them in the same build just because you're really hoping for both of them to have good night shooting.
Yeah, definitely. That's fair.
But I think that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Just to remind everyone that the Discord is going to be going live probably right now, if not very shortly here. It's always 30 minutes before lineup lock. So as always, be in there pretty much right after this live stream. If you guys want access to that, there's a link in the description below. So make sure to check that out. Any final closing thoughts?
No, just good luck, everyone. Definitely keep an eye on lineups and news, and let's get some money tonight.
All right, good luck, everyone.